Hello and welcome to Why I Love Warhammer, the show where I'm just going to talk in an unhinged ramble about why I like something in this hobby. And today's episode shouldn't be a controversial one, but might be online. Space Marines. Why I love Space Marines? Because as much as they are the poster boys for the hobby, as much as if you go on the Games Workshop website, it's got Xenos armies, armies of Chaos, armies of the Imperium, and Space Marines as their own section. They've got more. There's like as many models in the Space Marine range as there are in like the whole of Chaos and a couple of Xenos combined. They're still really cool. So this is one of the Blood Angels from my Blood Angels army that I traded my 3D printer for. I wasn't having much luck with the 3D printer. Hopefully the person I traded it to has some better luck than I did. But I like this one because I love the beaky design. There's something about it that just feels really medieval to me. And what's really cool with and again, like the bolter, which just looks like a normal gun on this guy, but in lore is kind of it's the size of it's this giant gun that shoots bullets the size of, depending on who you talk to, cola can, Monster Energy drink can, or brick. That is like rocket powered in itself. So it's just a really messed up, insane gun on its own, and the fact that that's their standard. And I love the kind of I love the helmet design, especially for the proper old beaky Marines like this guy, because it feels kind of medieval to me. And one thing I really like with the Space Marines is how, at least for the loyalists, and I'm only going to be talking about the loyalists here, they all have like a different type of army they're trying to be. So, your Dark Angels, your classic Arthurian Knights, and then you've got your Roman Empire Ultramarines, and the Chagatai Khan, the Mongolian hordes on their steeds. Rogal Dawn is this kind of siege warfare from inside the castle walls type thing. Imperial Fists. I just think for an army where if I spray this guy black and I were to shave off the heraldry on that shoulder pad, then you wouldn't know which faction they're meant to belong to until you paint them up. And if you paint them up to be just entirely made of rainbow, then you can say, this is my homebrew chapter, the Salt and Pepper Pringles, and they are a sub-faction of this first founding chapter of this legion. Even if you go as far as to say, they're a sub-faction of the Black Templars who wanted to be a bit more inconspicuous. Is it lore accurate? Maybe, maybe not. Is it a justification to paint your models exactly how you want to? Yeah. And you can paint your models in 40k any way you want, no matter what army you're painting. That's part of the joy, part of why my Chaos Knights are like this guy. But the fact that there's like this inbuilt lore reason to do it is something I really like. I really like as well. But it's not just your classic Marines. I love it when they've got the big chunky Terminator armor. This is another one of the Blood Angels from the army I traded 3D printer for, but this is one of the, I think there were like 3 models in there that weren't painted, so this is one of the few that I painted myself from that range. I do like that you do get the choice a lot of the time to have a helmet or no helmet. If I build a model, always with a helmet, but the fact that you do get that choice, that's something that I appreciate. And also, just the absolute sci-fi insanity that is having a giant gun like this, and also just a hammer. The Warhammer that it's decorative, it's fancy, and you know that at least internally it's got to be at least as good as the gun that fires bricks that explode, because otherwise why wouldn't you just have two guns? It's just that funny and ridiculous. It's just really fun to have. Similarly, there's another one from that Blood Angels list. I enjoy it when you got a character like this one. I think this one's Lamarty's. But also like the chaplains who have these skull helmets, which is just so unnecessary, but so cool to have. And it's like, yeah, this guy's got a skull for a helmet because there aren't enough skulls in this hobby. By the way, we're humans. We are the closest to we are the most common protagonists, and we have skulls for our helmets. And I enjoy the jump packs. They're just ludicrous, and of course, sci-fi future. Why wouldn't you have jetpacks? And just having this big like religious staff just hit people with faith, and especially when that faith is in the emperor who didn't want who hated religion. It's just it's just bashing people with atheism, which is just inherently hilarious to me. But it's not just. I'm going through these. I've got some models on my desk here, going through in a specific order. There's the last one from that Blood Angels list I'm going to show off. Because I love the vehicles too. I'm a sucker for vehicles. I enjoy the building and painting of having these big flat panels. So this Predator, and I love having the moving part. It's not glued in, but it means that I can dynamically pose it, and if you're doing anything narrative, it's my Predator is over here, and you're over there. In a tournament, you could debate whether things are modelled for advantage or not. But I enjoy just building and painting these flat panels with details. I enjoy having the range of guns. And I enjoy, and weird as it sounds, I enjoy the kind of boxy nature of them. The fact that it's this kind of square you can just kind of put on the table. And it's nice to have tanks like this, and tanks like rhinos, and infantry. I feel like I never got into like that world of tanks. There's like a tabletop war game that looked cool, but it just didn't quite have the variety that really makes 40k appealing. But with Space Marines specifically, I enjoy that there is a lot of lore to them. I mean, would I like more lore for other factions? Of course. Would I like more than 3 books for all of my Necrons? Of course. But it's nice. I want more stories. I don't want fewer stories to get more of the story. I don't want to sacrifice other people's stories just to get more of the stories I specifically want. Because you get these cool named characters. I forget what this guy was called, because he was meant to be painting him as box art was, I think he's meant to be an Ultramarine, but I wanted to paint him up to look like a Dark Angel. It's one of the few Space Marine factions I've never actually played against. I say that, I've only actually played against 2 loyalist Space Marine factions in my life. But I just thought it'd be nice just to paint him up in green. I mainly bought this guy because he had the Necrons on the base material, and I loved the aesthetic of it. But, he had the helmet and non-helmeted option. He's got this gun, which I magnetised, so I could give him the other gun if I wanted to. But just having that range of types of army. And especially now with 10th edition, the new codex, where you can play a list that's, say, all bikers, but they're Dark Angels. But actually, next game, they're not painted up to be a specific Legion colour scheme. There's going to be a load of Blood Angels on these bikes. It's going to be a load of Ultramarines on these bikes. It's going to be Imperial Fists on these bikes. You can change it up like that. And I just think that's a nice aspect to how you can do it. You can just keep building, to your heart's content, and really pick the aesthetic and the lore that suits you. The Primarchs are endlessly fascinating. So you know, I mean, the fact that there's always kind of things where people want them to return. I'm always excited for the Primarch return discussions. Like, you know, I always say I want Sanguinius to come back because I want the Impossible One to come back, or Ferrus Manus. Ferrus Manus I'd like to come back as like a floating head, or like a headless body like Agnew in Futurama. Just 'cause I think that'd be really cool. And then if you do, you know, but then we've got Gilliman back, we've got Lionel Johnson back. I think the next two that would be logical, he says, would be like Russ or the Khan. I feel like a Lehman Russ model would be cooler, but Jagatai Khan would have more kind of army potential. But then Corvus Corax, the whole thing of him being this kind of loyalist demon Primarch, that's going to be fun to build and paint. So yeah, there's no wrong answer really for which would be the best loyalist Primarch to return, because the one, at least for me, because you've either got ones that it's kind of like a triangle, right, of makes for the best 40k stories, makes for the best 40k like army construction, this channel's personal biases, and you can kind of pick where on the triangle you want them to be. You want things to be. So right at the top there in the my personal biases, you got Ferrus Manus and Sanguinius, and you know, gameplay wise, probably the Khan or Corax, and then in the storytelling side, I've swapped those two corners of the triangle. In the storytelling side, you've got you've got your Rogel Dawn, you've got your you've already had Lion or something, and your Lehman Russ. Especially now we've got the Lion back, Lehman Russ and the Lion, I think would be a really interesting dynamic. I mean, if they did bring back Sanguinius, I didn't get this model out in preparation because it's a bit fragile. So when I got my when I traded my 3D printer for the Blood Angels, it did come with this Sanguinius model that was falling apart at the time and has fully fallen apart now. But I think it'd be really fun to have Sanguinius back in 40k. Do I think it's going to be like the best thing lore-wise? No, of course not. I'm not foolish. But do I think it would be just really good fun, and would people get hyped for Sanguinius is back? Yeah, I do. But I guess moving a bit further away from Primarchs, one Space Marine faction that I'm particularly fond of are the Grey Knights. This was my when they remade the Castellan Crow model. I acquired one. I got this one off eBay because I was kind of tired of waiting for the standalone model to be released. But what I love with the Grey Knights is, I mean, I like how kind of super hyper elite they are. I enjoy these guns, which I think I read somewhere are technically against the Geneva Convention to use in real life, so it's just kind of funny to me that these, paladins have them. Castellan Crow, I love the sword. I love the notion of the sword that's constantly speaking to you, like trying to corrupt you. And the fact that no Grey Knights ever felt fall to chaos is something that's just silly in a way that I really like, but does make sense lore-wise. And I enjoy the absolute ridiculous amounts of heraldry. It makes them a bit of a pain to paint, but it's a project, and it's a fun one to do. And yeah, there's just some... And then the types of models you have for them, where you've got stuff in their range that you don't really get in other Space Marine ranges, like the Nemesis Dread Knights, that I know people call them baby carriers, and yeah, but I also do see them like the that suit that Ellen Ripley wears at the end of Aliens, which just, that's how I see it. and that makes it a bit cooler to me. But that doesn't mean it's not a baby carrier. And to be honest, I tend to favour... That's one of the few instances where I don't personally favour the more ridiculous interpretation of what the models are, because this is a funny hobby. It's a funny setting, really. It's ludicrous. Here are these 11, 12-foot super soldiers who are plastered in this ridiculous armour, and they are super fast. They run at 60 miles an hour. They are these immortal god beings, and their blood is sacred because their blood is that of demigods. They've got 2 hearts. They spit acid. It's hilarious, and you can't not love how ridiculous it is. Although what it is weird with that thing, I mentioned how fast they move. So if you measure up a Space Marine, actually before I do that, ballistic skill, 3 up, 4 up, so they're only hitting half to a half or 2/3 of their targets, which these guys have been trained from birth. I mean, I think this one's Primera, so not quite. These guys have been trained from birth and being put through these grueling programs, and by the time they're 10 or 11 or 12 years old, they're forcibly grown and put into these super suits. These are basically child soldiers, which is really horrible in a way that only 40k can really pull off. I mean, if there's another franchise that can pull it off in the same way, and in a setting where you're meant to root for them in a lot of the fiction, let me know, because I'd be curious. In canon, these guys are like 11, 12 feet tall. In model form, they're a little over an inch. So this is just a bit of an aside, but it's something that I think is really weird to note. So your average turn of 40k, you going command phase, where from the model perspective they're not moving. Movement, shooting, used to have psychic, but you're going to add psychic in just because I want to maximise things. I'm really overestimating every number here. So movement, shooting, psychic, charge, melee, end. And we're going to round up this guy's height, actually, because I measured him up to be about an inch tall. We're going to make it 2 inches. So, and the movement speed is, I think it's either 6 or 8, so let's pretend it's 8. So 8 inches, he's moving 4 times his height in a phase. And he can advance. Let's really maximise this. So it's going to be 8 plus 12 for the maximum advance roll. Actually, plus 6 maximum advance roll. So that's 14 inches. Then we're going to add on, 14 for movement, then psychic, shooting, and melee. We're going to add on another 24, so that's 48. And then we're going to add on the 12 inches for a charge phase. So let's call it 60 inches. 60 inches per turn for over 5 turns. We're just going to have one Marine who's just going to sprint across the board for an entire game of Warhammer. So 300 inches at 12 feet tall, we're talking about 3,000 feet. Let's call it 3,500 feet, just to simplify the maths. 3,500 feet is talking about 1,000 meters. Little over a little over a kilometer. Let's make the 60 mile. Let's say he runs at 30 miles an hour. It's Usain Bolt speed, and it's if you're 30 kilometers an hour. So in half an hour, you've done 1 kilometer. So an entire 40k battle is taking place over about 35 minutes. about the length of time to watch a Disney Plus show. That's kind of the ludicrousness of the setting, and that's me overestimating. If I were to say he's actually only an inch tall, remove the psychic phase, you can work it out based on how tall Marines are and stuff like that. That the average game of 40k lasts about 5 real world seconds. But to me, that's not a negative. That's just adding more to the amazing ludicrousness of Space Marines. And I think that's the sum of it. I love Space Marines because of how absolutely ridiculous they are. So comment question. If you want to leave a comment below, either about something about Space Marines you like, or let's make it a bit more complex, a bit more nuanced. Do you have any views about 40k that you tend not to express because you think they're going to be popular? Stuff like Space Marines are cool. And then if you could please like the video, subscribe if you wanted to, links in the description, all that good stuff. That'd be really great. And yeah, see you next time.